Chicago St. Regis Hotel, which we are told is opening up in February. However, many people have moved into the residences at the St. Regis. These are some of the tallest and priciest properties in our city. The penthouse of the middle column, top 2 floors of that center column, is under contract as one unit for $18.5 million. I do believe that that gets you the entire center rooftop. However, I do not know the value of $18 million, so I cannot tell you if that is a good deal or not. If you take a look up near the top of the tallest of the 3 columns, you can see that the 83rd floor, a little bit wider, heck of a lot more open than the rest. Believe me or don't, that 83rd floor is complete. It will remain open like that until the end of time. That will serve as a blow-through floor. The idea is that the wind will blow right through that 83rd floor rather than being absorbed by the core of the building and allowing for any movement up at the top. Here in the Windy City, even though our nickname has nothing to do with the weather, which I'll talk to you about at length later on, still get very strong gusts of wind. The architects and the structural engineers, they have to come up with different methods for offsetting any movement that might be caused by the wind. In the architectural, that movement is called drift. It's one of a handful of methods for offsetting drift that we will see on our tour today. Although the building's most striking feature is its curving facade, none of the edges actually curve. Each floor is simply 5 inches wider or more narrow than the last, undulating every 12 stories. Coming up on the left, you can see the horizontal black and blue striped glass on the side of the very triangular Swiss Hotel. The Swiss Hotel is from 1990. It was designed by an architect named Harry Weiss. We'll see some more Harry Weiss work as we go about our tour. That triangle shape maximizes the number of hotel rooms inside with a riverfront view. Set right back behind it, you have a building with some funky curving white balconies. These curving white balconies make it look as though a wave of water is cascading down the side of that building. That is very fittingly Aqua Tower. Aqua Tower was completed in 2010, designed by Studio Gang. This was GD Gang's first addition to the Chicago skyline. This was the tallest building in the world, designed by a woman, until GD Gang came in and upseat herself. Aqua Tower is also hotel and residential. The Radisson Blu Hotel is here with apartments and condos above. Each of those curving white balconies is entirely geometrically unique. No 2 of them are the same. It does a couple things. Number 1, it cuts the winds, makes the balconies more comfortable in temperature for more months of the year. Idea being to spend more time outside with your friends and family throughout the year. Those mathematically unique balconies also allow you to lean over and talk to your upstairs and downstairs neighbors. Tiny little people leaning around and talking to their friends were featured in all of the renderings of the building. Aqua Tower also made a very memorable appearance in the pilot of Ozark. What is all this going on? Today is the Duck Derby. They're going to dump 75,000 rubber ducks into the river. They're going to open half of this bridge above our heads at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. The Ducky Derby benefits the Special Olympics of Illinois. I can tell you more about it at the end of the tour. Straight ahead of us, a little bit to the right, you have a white building. Looks like a wedding cake with a clock tower up at the top. This is the Wrigley Building. The Wrigley Building was constructed to be the Wrigley Candy Company's headquarters. It was completed in 2 fell swoops. The first tower, the one with the clock, in 1921. Second tower in 1924. This building is designed in a style called Spanish Revival. Revivalist styles harken back to ancient cultures or eras in history in order to honor them and bring them back to life. The Wrigley Building is specifically modeled after the Giralda Tower. The Wrigley Building is surfaced with 250,000 glazed terracotta tiles. They are very delicate, as am I. They have to be hand washed once a year, as do I. These tiles, they come in 6 different shades. They start a little bit darker at the building's base, gradually get lighter as you go up toward the top, just to naturally draw your eye up to the clock. I'm very often asked about the little footbridge between the 2 towers. That little footbridge is not original to the building's design. It was added in 1931. People always expect a super interesting story about that little footbridge. And you know what? It is a super interesting story. If you are interested in bank branch laws, you got people from the same bank working in both towers. In order to be one bank branch, had to add the footbridge between the 2. It's thrilling stuff. Above our heads, the DuSable Bridge at Michigan Avenue, named for our city's founder, Jean-Baptiste DuSable. It was right here in the 1780s that he operated his trading post. There is a statue of him up top. This bridge was the world's first double-decker drawbridge. As of this summer, it is 102 years old. Straight ahead of us, you can see the second tallest building on the Chicago skyline today, and that is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. This building is from 2009. He started his career in Chicago working at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill before he went on to design the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, which is currently the tallest building on the planet. The Burj Khalifa is about as tall as if you took two of these and stacked them directly on top of each other, including the spire. This building is designed in a style called contextualism. It's in conversation with its context or location. Notice the three patio setbacks as you go up the side of the building. Each of these patio setbacks matches the height of an iconic structure nearby. First patio matches the height of the Wrigley building behind it. Second patio matches the height of the Mather Tower, which is the rocket ship-shaped building over on the other side of the boat. Third patio matches the height of the AMA Plaza, which is the black box building coming up right next door. That's Adrian Smith's way of recognizing that he could not have put this building in this spot if not for the others that were around it first, honoring that architectural history of Chicago. The AMA Plaza, this black box building coming up on our right, was completed in 1973 as the IBM building. It was designed by another very famous global architect, the German-born Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. Ludwig Mies van der Rohe is considered the father of modernism. Modern style architecture looks just like this. It's just the skeletal structure of the building's design. Ludwig Mies van der Rohe believed very strongly that the beauty of the building lies in the mathematics and the precision of the engineering. So why would you want to cover that up with any kind of decorative details? Next, on the right, are two of the most heavily photographed structures in our city. And these are the twin curving corncob-shaped towers of Marina City. Marina City is an entire complex completed in 1967, designed by a student of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. His name was Bertrand Goldberg. This entire complex was employed to attract residents back to the central business district of Chicago, which we call the Loop, because of the shape that the public transit train system makes around the downtown area. No one was living in the Loop in the late 50s, early 60s. Goldberg wanted to draw them back, so he was going to give them all of the resources of an entire neighborhood in a single complex. What does that look like? Housing up at the top, parking right below, office tower connected behind, movie theater, corner store, dry cleaners, restaurants, retail space, even a place to park your boat. And everything that you could possibly need all in one place. It was like a city within a city, and it was super successful in drawing residents back to the Loop area. Also very famous for the Steve McQueen film The Hunter, wherein a car drives out the parking garage and into the river below. Ahead of us on the right, you have a low-lying red brick building, another clock tower up at the top of this one. This is the Reed Murdoch building from 1914. It is one interpretation of prairie-style architecture. Prairie-style architecture is marked by long horizontal lines, solid construction, and integration with the natural local landscape. The most famous interpretation of prairie-style architecture is the portfolio of Frank Lloyd Wright. Unfortunately, there's no Frank Lloyd Wright for me to show you on the river. I still highly encourage you to take a trip to Oak Park where you can tour his home and studio. I will impart just one Frank Lloyd Wright fact since we're here. That's the fact that he shared a son-in-law with Joseph Stalin. Both men had daughters at one point, married to an architect named William Wesley Peters. Both of their daughters were named Svetlana. And a Frank Lloyd Wright fun fact, this building is also asymmetrical. The far end was shaved and replaced in 1930 to make space for LaSalle Street to get wider. Just shave and replace. You gotta make this city work for you know? Across the water from the Reed Murdoch building is the present-day River Theater portion of the Riverwalk. However, it's also a pretty somber Chicago landmark. This is actually the site of the deadliest maritime disaster in Great Lakes history. On the morning of July 24th, 1915, 2,500 employees and family members of the Western Electric Company were boarding the SS Eastland in this spot. They were headed to a company picnic in Michigan City, Indiana. The boat was very top-heavy with extra lifeboats per regulations set in place following the Titanic sinking 3 years earlier. Ballast tank stabilization efforts failed and the boat actually tipped on its side during boarding, trapping over 800 people below. A 20-year-old named George Hallis was ticketed and supposed to be on board the Eastland. His body was never recovered and he was reported deceased in the papers. When a couple of his friends dropped by the house to pay their respects, they were very surprised when George himself answered the door. They said, "Oh, George, we thought you were a goner." He said, "Oh no, I was going to be late, so I didn't bother to show," which is great because the Chicago Bears ahead of us on the right. Just after the next bridge, you have a giant limestone building, big cream-colored building. It has a green roof, lots of golden elements on its face. This giant limestone building is called Merchandise Mart. Merchandise Mart was constructed in 1930 as the wholesale warehouse for the Marshall Fields department store. At that time in 1930, this was the largest building on the planet in terms of square footage. The building is enormous. There's over 4.2 million square feet of space inside. At different points throughout history, Merchandise Mart has had its own zip code, its own fire station. To this day, it has its own public transit train stop. The building is designed in a style called Art Deco. Art Deco style architecture is marked by vertical racing stripes of a polished Indiana limestone face, deep inset windows that reinforce the look of those racing stripes, metallic elements on the building's facade that create a sense of rhythm when you are looking at them, and stair-stepped edges up at the building's crown. In a nod to this building's retail roots, you can see these green head statues along the river's edge. These are the princes of retail. Men such as Marshall Field, Aaron Montgomery Ward, Woolworth, Wanamaker, and more princes. We are now headed into an area of the Chicago River called Wolf Points. Wolf Point is where the three branches of the Chicago River converge. The main branch, which we have been traveling up so far, the north branch from this direction, and the south branch from down here, they all meet at Wolf Point. This is where we originally built the city of Chicago up around. City of Chicago was incorporated on March 4th, 1837. Today, Wolf Point is home to some of our flashiest and our newest architecture. For example, straight in front of us, we have a curved blue glass building. It looks like a hot pocket. This building is called River Point. It was completed in 2017, designed by Pickers Chilton, and that arch at the bottom is actually structural. Notice the portholes in the White Plaza below. Those are actually exhaust fans, as there are Metra and Amtrak passenger trains running underneath this building. When they went to design the structural support for River Point, they could not just stick something straight into the ground, they would run it to the rail yard below. Had to keep that load bearing above. They decided on this parabolic arch design, which also serves as the rain gutter for the entire facade of the building. In front of River Point is a spiraling red sculpture. This spiraling red sculpture is called Constellation. It was designed by the world-famous Spanish architect Santiago Calatrava. This is the only Calatrava work that we have in Chicago. He designed a building that was supposed to go up here many years back called the Chicago Spire. The Chicago Spire, it was going to be over 2,000 feet tall. It would have been the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. However, that project was killed by the 2008 financial crisis, but they had broken ground. Today, the Chicago Spire project is quite literally a giant hole in the ground near Navy Pier. Be careful, it's 76 feet deep and full of 15 years worth of rain. You can't fall in it, it's boarded up. The Great Chicago Spire that never was. Highly encourage you to look up photos of this tragedy. You can just Google civic embarrassment Chicago hole in the ground. Unfortunately, you will find it. As we curve into the north branch of the Chicago River, you can see the oldest building of our tour coming into view, and that is this peachy kind of pink colored building that will be on our left. This peachy pink building is called Fulton House. It was originally constructed in 1898. At that time, it did not look like this. It did not have any windows. You see, Fulton House was constructed as a cold storage warehouse for raw meats. Chicago has a very rich meat packing history. Had to come up with different ways to keep all those cuts cold so they wouldn't go bad before we could ship them out. One of the ways that we did that was by constructing these giant building-sized refrigerators in the middle of the downtown area, and then just stacking them stories and stories high with raw animal carcasses. It's a fabulous mental image for your Thursday morning. Fast forward to the late 1970s, and an architect named Harry Weiss of the very triangular Swiss Hotel, he decides he wants to convert Fulton House into 106 condominiums. Before he could do any construction on the building, he had to thaw it out for 3 whole months. Then he had to haul out 500 semi-truckloads worth of cork and horsehair that had been used to insulate the walls of the building. Next on the left is another Harry Weiss creation. This funky slanted white structure, these are the 4 River Cottages. This is a set of 4 unique townhomes completed in 1989. They represent a style of architecture called postmodernism. If modernism was the minimalist black box design of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe, this is its off-the-wall rebel child response of the 80s and 90s. Postmodernism is marked by wacky and whimsical design elements on the building's facade. 3 of the 4 original families still own their River Cottage today. They purchased their homes in 1989 for about $250,000. Before it sold in 2015, $5 million. Real estate along the river has changed significantly over the last 30 years, thanks in large part to the fact that the river has become more of a recreational waterway in that time than it ever was in all of our cities past. The Chicago River. Before we head back into Wolf Point to check out way more of the South Branch of the Chicago River, at this time we're going to take a really quick break, give our neighbors a break as we spin our speaker system in front of their homes. Great time for you to visit Zach at the bar, hang out and relax. I will be back on the microphone in about 3 minutes to talk about that bridge that was sticking up straight into the air.
That's good. Why? Okay.
When Europeans arrived in the 1670s, they were led across that subcontinental divide by native residents with their canoes on their backs. This portage route became the impetus for our city to build a series of canals over the next 250 years, permanently connecting these waterways, and in doing so, permanently connecting the Great Lakes water system with the Mississippi River Basin. The main branch of the Chicago River maintains that bright bluish-greenish color. That is the river's natural color. That is because of all of the lake water that gets flushed in at the Chicago Harbor Lock. That's the brighter blue-green color of Lake Michigan. Doesn't really make the turn so much into the north and south branches at Wolf Point. What causes that? It's a lack of phytoplankton, of course. Over the last 25 to 30 years, zebra mussels arrived in Lake Michigan, and they ate most of the phytoplankton, which is the algae that gives a freshwater lake or river its more brownish-greenish color. Without that algae, we're just left with that very clear, almost Caribbean-looking blue. Not to be confused with our very famous tradition of dyeing the main branch of the Chicago River bright green to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. That event is run by the Plumbers Union, Plumbers Local 130, and they are using the dye that plumbers use to detect leaks in pipes. It's also used to detect pollution in water. That dye actually starts out bright orange, it turns bright green when it hits the water, all very festive. Plumbers Local 130 has informed the public that that dye is vegetable-based, but it is ultimately a secret. Secret Chicago River dye recipe, nothing more Chicago than that. Curving concrete structure might remind you of the Marina City corn-cob-shaped towers. That is because it is the same architect. This was Bertrand Goldberg's second attempt at a city within a city. This is River City. It was completed in 1986. Underneath River City is a year-round marina. You can keep your boat here all year long. There are bubblers under the water that keep it agitated enough so that it does not freeze. Chicago River itself will freeze from time to time, although not nearly as often as you might think, considering how cold our winters can be. truly only a handful of times every year that the river will totally freeze over. When that does happen, the Chicago Fire Department gets out with their boats very quickly to break up that ice and keep this passageway navigable down to the Mississippi. New construction. This is called the Reed New Condo Tower here in the South Loop neighborhood. It is the latest addition in this whole development along the South Branch. This whole development is called River Line. They just topped out this week. Straight ahead of us, you have a black building. It has a big white frame and a series of rectangular gray balconies popping out of the side. Some people say it looks like it was written in Morse code. It was not. It's actually an example of contextualism. This is 235 Van Buren. It was completed in 2010. The context that this building is in conversation with is actually the traffic on I.W. Wells Drive below. It's meant to replicate cars stuck in traffic. It's actually very beautiful. If you find yourself caught in a jam, you could just take a look up at 235 Van Buren and see your situation reflected back at you in a very meaningful way. Further over to the right in the distance, you have another great example of Art Deco. This one has a big statue up at the top. That is the Chicago Board of Trade building. The Chicago Board of Trade building was completed in 1930. It was the tallest in our city at that time. That statue, that is Ceres, the Roman goddess of grain and agriculture. Ceres is on top of our Board of Trade because Chicago is the home of grain futures trading. This building may also look familiar to you as Wayne Enterprises from Batman Begins. Straight ahead of us, you have a peachy kind of coral colored building. It has blue glass windows and a big crown up at the top. This is 311 South Wacker. 311 South Wacker was completed in 1990. At that time, the crown was lit by 1,800 super bright fluorescent light bulbs. We have since switched over to LED. We have also learned that we have to turn the bulbs down in brightness during certain bird migration seasons. You see, when migrating birds first came through, they actually mistook that crown for the moon. They got super lost. We felt super bad. So now when we know that the birds are coming through, just turn the lights down, stay out of the entire situation. Directly behind that, you have the tallest of the tallest building in the city of Chicago. This is the Willis Tower. The Willis Tower, which is commonly referred to by its original name, which is the Sears Tower. Clocks in at 1,451 feet tall, or 450. Now I'm going to say something to all of you that has never gotten me a second date, and that is, I want to talk to you about skyscraper antennas. I think they're rad. I think they're totally bewitching. You see the two antennas on top of the Sears Tower. Although they are very tall, they're almost 29 stories tall. They actually do not get to count toward the building's official heights. They are considered to be purely utilitarian. It's just technical equipment. Counter that with a spike on top of One World Trade Center. That is not called an antenna at all. That is called a spire. A spire is a decorative design choice. It is considered to be inherent to the building's overall design. It would not be One World Trade Center if the spire was not there. Therefore, it does get to count toward the building's official heights. The fact of the matter is, the roof of the Sears Tower is 83 feet higher than the roof of One World Trade Center. So you know, they got us on a technicality with that one, but we definitely don't have an inferiority complex about it, if that is what you were thinking. So, what's with the name? Sears, Willis, what are we doing in this town? Again, this building was constructed to be the Sears Company's headquarters back in 1974. The largest company needed the largest headquarters. Chicago was very proud to be home to the tallest building in the world for almost 25 years. It will always be the Sears Tower to us. Fast forward to the year 2009, and the Willis Insurance Company, which is headquartered in the UK, they came in to lease 3 floors of the building. And for $1 million a year, they were able to lease the naming rights. It's very similar to how sports stadiums throughout the United States consistently change names. Names be changing, but this is the Sears Tower. If you take a look up at the top of the building one more time, when we come out from under the bridge, you will still be able to see them, but you will find 5 glass boxes jutting out into the sky up near the top. Those glass boxes, that is sky deck, the ledge, the observation deck up at the top of the Sears. Up on the ledge, you can step out onto a glass floor. You have glass walls on all 3 sides of you, and you can feel as though you are floating over 1,200 feet in the air above downtown Chicago. From time to time, they've hosted yoga classes and events up on the ledge for people with a really warped sense of what is relaxing. 2 people throughout history have successfully scaled the outside of the Sears Tower, bottom to top. First was an American man in the 1980s. He was wearing a homemade Spider-Man suit, of course. He used suction cups to get up to the top. History calls him Spider Dan. Second was a Frenchman in the 1990s, and he used nothing but his bare hands and toes. The Sears Tower's overall design is what offsets the sway of the winds. You will notice that the building is not one single column flying toward the sky, but rather a group of 9 columns bundled together that rise to various heights. It is rumored that the architects at Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, led by Chief Engineer Dr. Fazlur Khan of Bangladesh, they were playing with cigarettes when they came up with this design idea. They noticed that if you just stack one cigarette directly on top of another one, that will bend or sway in the winds. However, if you group a few cigarettes together at the bottom, have the structure get slimmer as it rises toward the top, and you have a much more solid base to stand on. That technology is very simply called bundled columns, sometimes called bundled tubes, and it is also how the Burj Khalifa offsets the sway of the wind in Dubai. That being said, on a very, very windy day, the Sears Tower can still safely sway up to 18 inches in any direction. 18 inches. It's enough to slosh the water out of the toilet bowls. So I'm not really sure what's so safe about all of this. Not to drop the antenna point too far home, but for the record, the 2 antennas are about the same height as the Black Box building over on the left-hand side of our boat. It's the flashiest moment of this tour. Underneath this building, tucked back in there, passenger trains, metro trains, Amtrak trains. The railroad companies, they own the land that their tracks are on. They also own the air above them, as far as the eye can see. That's the legalese, as far as the eye can see. When you construct on top of that, as so many buildings in Chicago have done, you have to make annual lease payments to the railroad company for the air. That contract's called air rights. 2 Riverside Plaza was actually the first building in our city constructed on an air rights contract. That was in 1929. Still construct on these contracts today. Back here in Art Deco Canyon, this time the Civic Opera Building is on the right-hand side of the boat. The Civic Opera Building is also from 1929, and it is the permanent home of the Lyric Opera Company. The entire building is shaped like a throne or an armchair, which is very strategically and very purposefully facing west. Complex. Don't be silly. I'm very optimistic about the lettering on the side of this building. They did not spell it wrong. They just decided to spell it in Latin, just for fun, just for aesthetics. The Latin alphabet does not contain the letter U. This lettering was just added in the last 30 years or so. It's actually now part of the building's original design. Whoa, that was spelled out. That would have been a fun twist. Coming up on the right, another one of the most recently completed skyscrapers of our tour. This is the Bank of America building from November of 2020. The Bank of America building was designed by Gatch Partners, which is the same firm that designed the Charlotte Metal Shape 150 North Riverside. Jim Gatch has been quoted saying it's more important how a skyscraper touches the ground than how it touches the sky. Because of the timing of this building, it also features pandemic-friendly technology. They were able to go back and add in water temperature scanners, upgraded air filtration systems, antimicrobial cladding on all of the glass doors, and a smartphone app that will call an elevator to your desired floor without you having to touch a thing. It's part of a whole wave of post-pandemic architectural technology. There is a building going up in the Fulton Market neighborhood of Chicago with the world's first foot-operated elevator. The future is now. Back over to 150 North Riverside, sharp and pencil-shaped building. This building uses a very interesting technology to offset the sway of the winds. We talked about the blow-through floor for the St. Regis, bundled columns for the Sears Tower. This building, it uses a system called inertial slosh dampers, sometimes called tuned liquid slosh dampers. All the way up at the top of this building, on the inside, there are 12 giant tanks holding 160,000 gallons of water. How it works is this. When the wind pushes the building in one direction, the water sloshes in the other direction, keeping that building nice and straight upright. Almost works like a giant shock absorber. Some buildings in the world, they have a giant pendulum inside trying to achieve that counterweight objective. It's a similar idea, but with water up at the top. Straight ahead of us, as we head back into Wolf Point, you can see they are completing the third of the trio of Wolf Point towers. Wolf Point West went up first in 2016. That is the teal-colored building over to the left. Wolf Point East, the lighter blue building with white trim, just completed in 2020. Both of those are residential. And now Wolf Point South is going up between the two. It will be the tallest of the three buildings and the only commercial of the three buildings. It will be called the Salesforce Tower. Kind of interesting, this piece of land straight ahead of us is actually owned by the Kennedy family, the family of President John F. Kennedy. His father, Joseph P. Kennedy, purchased this piece of land along with Merchandise Mart back in 1945. Family sold Merchandise Mart in 1998, but they did maintain ownership of this piece of land here. Crazier than that, 7-8 years ago, this piece of land was a flat parking lot. There was nothing here, just a place to park your cars, not even a parking structure, just one flat lot. We've definitely improved upon the space. Back over on the right, one curved green glass building. This is 333 West Wacker, or the Nuveen building. They have a very strong attention to detail. It is also Ferris Bueller's dad's office building. It's another great example of contextualism from 1983. The curve and the color of the building mimic the curve and the color of the river below. Underneath the Nuveen building is New Public Art. This is called The People in Your Neighborhood. These are all real Chicagoans. CTA drivers, postal service workers, writers, bartenders. This was designed by local street artist Phil Trett and just installed in the summer of 2020. The People in Your Neighborhood. It marks the westernmost point of the Chicago River Walk. The Chicago River Walk was completed in 2016, spans 1.25 miles. It can get you from here at Wolf Point all the way out to Lake Michigan along the south bank of the main bridge of the Chicago River. It is divided into distinct sections at each of the bridges, each with their own personality and function. My favorite work of public art along the Riverwalk actually cannot be seen in the daytime. It is called Arts on the Marts. Art on the Mart is the world's largest display of projected public art. What happens is after the sun goes down, take giant works of light and digital art and project them across the entire face of Merchandise Mart, which is 2.5 acres in size. This program just got started in 2018. It's been super popular with residents and visitors. As we come out from under this bridge, you will find the projector system for Art on the Mart house in this big gray box. This projector system uses a digital laser mapping technology to map out the surface of the building so that no light ever shines into the windows of Merchandise Mart. Art on the Mart, it takes place every single night. Right now it starts at 9 o'clock, runs again at 9:30. 2 chances to catch it every night, Art on the Mart. This portion of the Riverwalk is your best place to catch it. This is called these stainless steel rods popping up there supporting floating gardens called the Fish Hotels. The roots of the Fish Hotels attract wildlife to come and spawn. You can fish. What you sure should not eat, what you catch. You should just throw that back in. I wouldn't even hold it for too long. I would just throw that back in. Coming up on the right, you have a highly reflective blue glass building. This one has channels cut into its face that create these sky-high patios. This is 111 West Wacker. 111 West Wacker is a residential tower from 2014. It is designed in a style called sliced minimalism. Sliced minimalism. It is a next generation contemporary style. What does that mean? It means you should come back on this tour in 25 years. And it will be led by one of my children who will tell you how sliced minimalism fits into the American historical context of the 2010s, which we all have not finished making sense of just yet. Right after 111 West Wacker is 77 West Wacker. That is this white granite and reflective glass building with a triangle roof. Makes it look like a Greek or a Roman temple. 77 West Wacker is from 1992. It's designed by a Spanish architect named Ricardo Bofill. For a time, it was the world's headquarters for United Airlines until United Airlines moved into the Sears Tower in 2012. Dropping down right next door to that is my personal favorite building of this tour, the short, stout, concrete 55 West Wacker. 55 West Wacker is designed in a style called brutalism. If you are not sure what emotion brutalism is meant to convey, I will tell you, lots of government buildings were designed in this style during the Cold War era. Brutalism is meant to convey the moral high ground. The term brutalism actually comes from the French term they call brut, which means raw concrete. Raw, untreated concrete is the hallmark of the brutalism design more than anything else. What do I like about these buildings? Unique pours of concrete. Most brutalist buildings are about 60 years old. How do we maintain unique pours of concrete over time? We don't know yet. I like the mystery of it all. This building was constructed to be the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois headquarters. They have since moved out. Today it's commercial office space and apartments. You could live there if you wish to do so. Not me, too close to work. Way ahead in the distance, you will find a forest green colored building with a golden top. This green and gold building, very famous on our skyline. This is the Carbide and Carbon building. The Carbide and Carbon building was completed in 1929, designed by the Burnham Brothers firm, two sons of World War II architect Daniel Burnham. They were working on this bad boy at the height of Prohibition, or the era in the United States when alcohol was illegal. Now, I don't know about all of you, but when I am told that I cannot have something, I think about that thing a lot. We suspect that the Burnham brothers were thinking a lot about a champagne bottle when they designed the Carbide and Carbon building. That golden top is surfaced with gold leaf that is roughly 1/5000th of an inch thick. Half the thickness of saran wrap. Super, super thin. Still shines so golden bright to us from the ground. Today that building is home to the Pendry Hotel, and they have opened the building's first rooftop bar in the last year and a half. Closer to us on the right, you have a very ornate beige colored building. It has two rectangular pieces and a big fancy dome up at the top. This is the Jewelers building from 1927. Back in its heyday, it was a hotbed of not only jewelry merchants, but also organized crime. Hard to have one without the other in Chicago at this time. For this reason, the Jewelers building was originally outfitted with a car lift, or an elevator for your car, in order to facilitate the safe transfer of both jewels and people. The top portion of the building, the dome, it was home to a restaurant called the Stratosphere Club. Stratosphere Club is commonly rumored to have been run by Al Capone. However, that rumor is very easy to dispel. As the Stratosphere Club opened in 1937, Al Capone was in prison for tax evasion in 1931. The building is also very famous for having been featured in the hit Chicago documentary Transformers: Dark of the Moon. Tall, skinny white tower looks like a rocket ship. This is the Mather Tower from 1923. It was home to the Mather Stock Car Company. It is the narrowest skyscraper in Chicago. Two doors down, limestone structure with the cupola up at the top. That is the London Guarantee and Accident building from 1928. Today it's home to the London House Hotel. They added that glass addition next door in 2016. The rooftop bar at the London House Hotel was recently voted #2 rooftop bar in all of these United States. Drives us bonkers. We hate being #2 at stuff, but it is a great rooftop bar. You should totally check it out. Back over on the left, between the two towers of the Wrigley building, you will see a golden yellow onion-shaped dome peeking out. That golden yellow onion-shaped dome is on top of the Intercontinental Hotel. We'll have a way better view of the wholesale travels on the rest of your adventures, and I hope that your adventures bring you back to Chicago, Illinois very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.